Okay. So coming up next, we've got someone by the name of Sheldon Harrison. Now, as soon as you meet Sheldon, you could kind of feel the star power. He's got like this aura to him that's really energizing. Now, he's one of those people that are one of a kind, straight hustler. Literally been selling all sorts of things, and he's got a ton of skills at doing it. So he's a realtor, and he's got a very interesting story about how he went through 1,000 different things before he found real estate. But you can't help but get inspired. So in this episode, he breaks down how he made his first 100K and how he spent it. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Sheldon Harrison. What was your name?
Sheldon Harrison.
Sheldon Harrison. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, Sheldon. Now, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Have you ever made 100 grand in a year before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, we got to dive in, man. I got to hear a little bit more about it. How'd you do it?
The first 100K I saw in a year was many years ago. I was working in the skilled trades. I split my time between, servicing cars at the dealership and then my evenings and weekends doing personal jobs at home and at friends' homes. So we went from turning wrenches literally all day and then all night. So, to midnight, 2, 3 in the morning, engine R&Rs, complete overhauls and everything else in between. And that's where we were able to crush it and get there.
Interesting. Okay, so break down what it is that you're doing. How did you get into this car stuff?
Yeah, so I've been doing since I was 14, cars, bikes, outboard motors, 2-strokes, 4-strokes, diesels, rotaries, everything except for EVs because those weren't the thing at the time.
Wow, that's crazy. So what got you interested in cars?
I've been into it since I was a child.
Interesting. Okay, so that was the first 100 grand. What about the next 100 grand?
The next one was actually through sales. I did that when I flipped my first house.
Flipped your first house. Okay, dive in, man. You go from cars to flipping houses. How do you go from one to the other, and how did you even start learning about this stuff?
Well, when I was in the skilled trades, people would come in, and I ran into people consistently that I was servicing cars that I couldn't afford to buy because I was in the car service industry. So I got into the sales side.
Interesting. So what was it like when you first got there, man? That must have been scary trying to switch from something that you like, something that you know so well, into going and talking to all these strangers, man. What was that like?
It can be intimidating because you're moving into a different lane. You're a little out of your element. Everything feels awkward, and you have to build up your confidence all over again.
Interesting. So how did you do that? Like, you don't know anything in this new world. Now all of a sudden you got confidence to build. You got people to talk to, things to start advising people. How do you start building up that confidence?
You just got to keep taking, swings at it. You got to get as many at-bats as you can. You're going to eat shit. You're going to fail. Things are going to just crumble and explode in your hands, and there's nothing you can do about it, but it's part of the learning curve.
So what was it that you started selling?
I sold insurance, water dispensary systems, sold cell phone plans, sold tablets, sold extended warranties, sold batteries, sold everything.
Interesting. You got some for sale right now?
I got a couple of houses for sale right now if you want it.
So you went from cars to insurance to cell phone warranties and batteries. So you said you're selling houses now?
Yes.
Okay, break that down. So how did you even get into that, if you don't mind me asking?
I got into the property management side of things. I did that for a number of years. Getting into the property management side got me into close proximity with a lot of owners and developers and investors. So I got very comfortably, very quickly dealing with people on the investor side of the client base. And I was able to leverage those relationships and leverage that dialogue and those talking points and the pain points that they need addressed to be able to service people in the investor class that much more.
That's really cool. So Sheldon, have you ever made 100 grand in a month before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, break that down, man. We got to learn a little bit more about it.
So it's just about being on the sales side. So you get all your closings done, you have everything lined up. When things are in escrow, you want to speed other things up. You want to slow other things down. And part of it was luck of the draw. I just had a whole bunch of closings that all happened within the same 30-day period. And I was really, really blessed, but it did help set a new precedent.
Interesting. Okay, so walk us through life at the time, man. All of a sudden you start selling real estate. You're making 100 grand a year. What was that like for you? Do you remember what you even did with your first 100 grand?
I thought I was rich. I spent it on basically disposable things, vacations, clothes, nice food, bought myself a, luxury car, I was feeling myself, I thought I was the man, but, in actuality, I was just finishing the tutorial level, it was not even level 1. It was the introduction to level 1.
Interesting. Okay. So that was how you made 100 grand in a year, 100 grand in a month. Mm-hmm. Have you ever made 100 grand in a day?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to dive in, man. We got to learn a little bit more.
So I was doing my undergrad at the University of Windsor. Shout out to University of Windsor. And I had bought my first investment property that year. I bought, this was a number of years ago before the market had changed in Windsor, Ontario. Got a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house with a fully fenced-in backyard and a detached garage for $85,000.
85,000?
I know.
Dude, where was this? What type of house is
This is very close to the downtown core in a great area, very close to parks, right around the corner from a boulevard, very close to the hospital. Amazing space. I bought that. I made $23,000 at closing, and then I cash flowed right around $21,000 a year on that steadily. And then when I turned around and sold it, I ended up selling it for over $200,000. And again, like, you make that in a day, and I was like, oh, I'm done.
That's
I'm
crazy.
rich. And again, that's level 1.
So what did you okay, so I got 2 questions. First of all, what did you spend this $100,000 on?
Took care of other expenses. I was still a broke student. Well, wasn't broke anymore after that. So I got to live the high life while, being an undergraduate. I got to, leverage that into other ways of, investing more into training. And actually that house flip actually paid for all of my real estate courses and my insurance and all the costs of operating my business in the onset of me starting my real estate career, actually.
Interesting. Okay. So can you break down how you made that $23,000 on closing? We want to understand that a little bit more. Maybe you could explain that.
So it was a little complicated. I actually ended up qualifying for a mortgage for $105,000 because I was just a bartender and a waiter at the time as a student, so you didn't make much. But I qualified for $105,000. So I ended up getting approved for $105,000. So the deal was actually for $105,000, but the seller only wanted $85,000. So we had the seller write a letter of intent, a letter of direction actually, to their legal counsel that's closing the deal, and they decided to gift me back the difference between the 85 and the 105 minus a couple of dollars for taxes. So they kicked me back about $19,000 at closing. So it was a cash back on close type thing. I also, because it was my first purchase, I was able to get it with as little as 5% down, but for an extra half point on my mortgage at the time, they offered 5% cash back on close. So the $5,750 that I put down as a down payment actually got gifted back to me at the closing time. And when I had wrote the offer, where once the deal went firm, I was able to get the keys to the space, get access to the property, make improvements, advertise the space, turn on utilities, install tenants, and collect leases. So I already had the place fully tenanted, all 4 bedrooms, and I had deposits in hand. So that's another $2,000 plus in deposits, but between $2-3K in deposits, and I think it all amounted between the deposits, the cash back on close from the lender, and the cash back on closing from the letter of direction from the seller's lawyer. I was able to pocket about $23,000 on the closing of that property.
Wow, that's crazy. Now, most people these days are like, I don't even know how I'm going to buy my house. You're here figuring out how to get money back on the purchase. Yeah. So how did you learn that stuff?
Part of it is just really, really taking the time to learn and respect the process. Read a lot of really good books about real estate pertaining to the system that we have in our local market. So there's a lot of things that may not apply specific to your market. So you got to get hyper specific with the data and the strategies you're able to apply. Part of it's just taking the risk. Sometimes you might have to do the door knocking, the bird dogging. You have to make those uncomfortable phone calls. But the most important thing is you have to ask for the business. You'll be surprised what people will give you if you just ask for it. And even if they say no, maybe they might offer you an alternative, or maybe they might say, hey, this might not be for me, but I know somebody else that might be interested in that proposition. So you have to get outside of your comfort zone, and whatever stories that you tell yourself that stifle your growth, put them in a box and throw it in the river. You don't need it.
Interesting. Sheldon, thanks so much for sharing, man. So what would you go back and tell your old self, right? Like the Sheldon 10 years ago, what would you tell him?
Be humble, be patient, trust your process. Don't let people waste your time. Don't deviate from the things that you know are important. Know your core values, focus on your core competencies, and focus on your OMG tasks. You know what those are, only money generating.
Interesting. And just for a little bit of context, what are your OMG tasks right now?
My OMG tasks are live offers, showing people the process, showing people the space, equipping them to be able to close on the house. Other OMG tasks include, doing things after you get the deal accepted to make sure everything goes smooth during escrow. Make sure you got your cleaners lined up. Make sure you got your contractors lined up. Make sure you got your lenders lined up. Make sure you got your B lenders lined up. Make sure you got your private money lenders lined up. You would rather have 100 ways to do one deal than one way to do, and then 100 ways. Let me say that again. You'd rather know 100 ways to do one deal than one way to do 100 deals, if that makes sense.
We appreciate the wisdom, Sheldon. And before you go, where can we find you if we want to learn more about what you're doing?
You can find me first and foremost on Instagram, sheldonharrison.realtor. You can find me on Facebook, Sheldon Harrison, and you can also find my professional page, Sheldon Harrison Real Estate.
Beautiful. We'll make sure we toss it in the bottom so everybody can follow you. Sheldon, thanks so much, man. We appreciate you sharing the wisdom with us.
No problem. Happy
Cheers.
to help.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's how Sheldon Harrison made his first 100K. So I hope you guys enjoyed and got some gems and a little bit of inspiration from this episode. Once again, I'm Javon.ca, and I want to thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you on the next episode.